So what should we do for next year? I've been sneezing, wheezing, I have a bit of a cough and a cold. All of this largely acquired after Diwali, as have many people in North Indian cities. We had a ban in place, the ban wasn't followed. Is there any purpose in having a ban that isn't followed? How should we prepare for the next Diwali and for the entire pollution season? Joining me on this broadcast, I want to welcome first a member of the Aam Aadmi Party. It's legislator Raghav Chadha. TV Mohandas Pai joins us. He was on our show right before Diwali advocating for people being allowed to burst crackers, said this is a bad idea. Yashovardhan Azad joins us. He's a well-known former police officer. Rahul Ishwar is back with us. And we have Jyoti Pandey Lavakare, author of Breathing Here is Injurious to Your Health. Raghav Chadha, I want to go to you first. As the party that's responsible for running the national capital, what's your explanation for why the firecracker ban that you had introduced, which you publicized as much as you did, you tried to ensure that people would follow it, it wasn't followed? It was almost as if people didn't care about the ban that your government had placed. Raghav, I think you're on mute. Could you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Rahul, as you rightly pointed out, roughly 1.5 months prior to the festival of Diwali, the Honorable Chief Minister of Delhi announced a complete blanket ban on use, sale, purchase, as well as possession of firecrackers in the NCT of Delhi. This was further backed by orders from the NGT, by the Honorable Delhi High Court, as well as the Honorable Supreme Court. And the court had in fact asked us to do wide publicity of this ban so that people do not burn firecrackers. However, unfortunately, there were certain parts of Delhi where firecrackers were used, and the enforcement of this, Rahul, is whether we call it fortunately or unfortunately, is largely with the police, that is the Delhi police, and partly with the civil administration, that is the Delhi police, that is the Delhi Pollution Control Committee, that is the DPCC, that falls under our government. Now, it is unfortunate that in parts of Delhi we did see firecrackers being burst, but what is more unfortunate, Rahul, is that lawmakers, senior members of parliament, elected twice, thrice, of the Bharatiya Janata Party, openly instigated people to burn firecrackers. They in fact appealed to the people of Delhi and to the people of North India to burn firecrackers. I think this is, something that should be condemned. Diwali is the celebration of Lord Ram coming home. We worship Lord Ganesha, Ma Lakshmi, etc. But we do not burn firecrackers. That is the real spirit of Diwali. But what we saw, that the BJP tried to communalize it. The BJP tried to, instigate people into burning firecrackers, which is just not acceptable, and certainly not acceptable from a political party that is running the government at the center, which has its seat, the capital seat, the seat of power in the national capital territory.
Okay,
and
so
if
Mohandas Pai, we now have a situation where the Aam Aadmi Party is saying the efficacy of the ban that the state government had introduced could not be measured because you had the central government having its nominees encourage people to violate the ban. So there is no way of knowing whether people were wanting to follow the ban or not, because the charge is the BJP was encouraging people, provoking people to go out and burst crackers. There is no BJP representative on the show, and in case you're wondering why, it's because the BJP has decided they didn't want to participate in this, even though its IT chief cell, Amit Malviya, did put out 3 tweets where he explained why he thought this was anti-Hindu, and if there was to be a ban, it should be a year-long ban. It cannot be against firecrackers only around Diwali, because that would be against a Hindu festival. But Mohandas Pai, opening comments from you.
Rahul, Raghav is running a fake narrative again, saying that crackers are not an integral part of Diwali. It is an integral part of Diwali. I celebrated Diwali for more than 55 years after being a small child. And every year there have been crackers. Right now in my city of Bangalore, you can hear the noise of crackers. People are going to burst crackers. Crackers are not responsible for much of the pollution in Delhi. Now, you have said yourself that burning residual crops has gone up by some 36%. That 36% of pollution and PM2 material is because of the crop. What have they done about the burning of the crop? Now, both the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party are playing politics, pointing finger at each other and hurting the health of the people of New Delhi. Now, what are they both doing to stop stubble burning in Punjab? The Punjab Chief Minister, Amrinder Singh, was on record last time to say he doesn't have the money to stop it. Why didn't the government of Delhi give money to Punjab to get the farmers to change their practices, pay them for the stubble, and stop it, because the citizens of Delhi are getting hurt the most? Instead of that, they're releasing advertisements, some silly advertisements saying, you spray this kind of organic material, everything will go away, and spending large amounts of money in advertising, which is totally ineffective. Whereas stubble burning has gone up some 36%, and reports say it'll go to 42, 43% next 3 days. And there has been a spurt of stubble burning in the last 3-4 days.
Okay,
they're
Raghav Chadha,
playing politics.
Party is putting out ads in places where your party doesn't even exist, which is clearly aimed at politics more than it is at anything to do with the governance of the capital. And Mohandas Pai then asks, why can't you send some money to the farmers of Punjab so that they are encouraged not to burn the stubble?
I have never heard a more illogical argument around Diwali ever in my limited experience of public life. Rahul, let me say this in no uncertain terms, that the central government's own pollution watchdog's data says that in and around Diwali, that is yesterday, day before and today, the levels of air pollution that have gone up in several North Indian cities, including Delhi, is largely attributable to the burning of firecrackers. That's point number one. That is the government of India's, not my government, the government of India's figures put out. So therefore, this argument that no, it's stubble burning and not firecrackers, etc., is an absolutely erroneous argument, illogical argument. However, if you wish to discuss stubble burning, I can say the following 3-4 things. Number one, stubble burning, of course, is an issue, a big issue, and in the months of October and November, we do see that the cases of stubble burning in neighboring states go up. The central government should have ideally incentivized the respective state governments to ensure that no stubble burning cases happen in those states. Now, the government of Delhi, Rahul, came out with a biodecomposer spray, which was made available to all farmers in Delhi by the government of Delhi. And you would be surprised to know that the stubble burning cases in Delhi have come down by a whopping 95% because of the use of that spray. And we made that spray available absolutely free of cost to the farmer. And it is beneficial to the farmer because the stubble upon the usage of this spray converts into fertilizer. So my limited question is that when Pusa Institute, which is a body of the government of India, not of the Delhi government, has come up with this innovative solution, why isn't this solution being publicized and used in states like Punjab, Haryana and other states? And lastly, whose responsibility is it to incentivize neighboring states? Is it Delhi's responsibility or the government of India's responsibility?
Rahul,
I mean, how politically immature statements are being made on this count.
Mohandas Pai, the fallacy with your argument is you're asking why the AAP isn't spending money to pay the farmers of Punjab, sir. If the farmers of Punjab are to be compensated, that's either the responsibility of the Punjab government or of the central government, not of the Delhi government, sir.
Of course.
Rahul, let me explain. I think, again, Raghav is getting a fake narrative. First of all, you yourself said in the opening of this debate that air pollution due to stubble burning has gone to some 36% from 24%, 18% last year. So it's not due to crackers. Crackers are marginal. Yes, there is an impact, but it's marginal. You yourself made the statement. Now, Raghav is dodging the whole thing and saying crackers, which is silly because he's not looking at data. Second, the central government, from what I know, has a scheme whereby they reimburse 50% of the equipment cost to make sure that is all put into the ground. They got special equipment where they plow it and put in the ground. Government has a scheme, I think central government for the last 3 years out of Supreme Court to pay 50%. The Punjab government is not paying its share. When the Punjab government is not paying its share because of lack of money, let the Delhi government do it. Why is the AAP not doing it? Because the AAP wants to contest elections there. They don't want to go against the Punjab farmers because it's part of their mandate. See, Rahul, these political parties, whether it's the BJP or the AAP, are playing games. They're playing games with the health of people. They're playing games with the health of people. Congress party in Punjab is playing games. The Haryana government is playing game. Citizens of Delhi have become the guinea pigs for all their political shenanigans. If I were the Chief Minister of Delhi, I will give 250 crores, 300 crores to Punjab to say, here are the money. incentivize the farmers. Please stop it because my citizens are suffering. Delhi has got a budget of 75,000 crores, 80,000 crores. Give 250 crores.
Okay,
What does it
so
matter?
I want to go across to no, Raghav. I want to go across to the other guests as well.
These are lies. Rahul, these are lies. These are lies.
Yeah,
I mean,
Raghav is a holy cow who says the truth. Everything is a lie. He's not even talking about stubble burning. You know,
let me finish.
Crackers have a very marginal impact. You know that, Rahul. You have given the data yourself.
I've heard your argument. Mr. Pai, I've heard your argument. Let me finish. Number one, thank
Raghav,
God
stop
you're not
lying,
the Chief
man.
Minister of Delhi. The budget of Delhi is not 80,000 crores. We're at 54,000 crores. And thirdly, the government of Punjab has money. It is the responsibility of the Union of India to fund all these state governments as far as this air pollution business is concerned, which they don't do because they abscond from their abdicate
Don't advertise, man.
responsibility.
Give that money.
And the government of Delhi has given an extremely cheap solution to the overall problem of stubble burning, that is this decomposer spray, which is not being used, including by your party's Haryana government. Why don't you ask? You have such good relations with the union government and with the
Yashovardhan Azad,
you should just pick up
Yashovardhan Azad, if you saw what was happening in the NCR region, it almost seemed as if law enforcement agencies and officials had taken a Diwali break. The law was being violated under their nose, in front of their eyes, and it almost as if the cops didn't care.
Well, before that, Rahul, let me tell you, if a Supreme Court has already given clear, precise orders on the ban of crackers, and it has talked about green crackers, and there is a political discourse or opinion moving around that crackers, we cannot dispense with crackers because this is an essential part of Hindu religion, then what do? In fact, the contempt should start right from there on any kind of irresponsible statements like this. Secondly, the green crackers were in short demand. They were being sold in black. Third, there is a problem of security features. Fourth, the SHOs of the local areas have been asked to go. Do you think it is possible for SHOs to go around? You have one SHO in the areas, constitutes about lakhs of people. You have to go through a QR code, you have to go through a hologram, the advanced security features, otherwise very, very difficult to detect. Can a Havaldar or a constable can do all these things? First of all, can this kind of offense, like in Chennai, 891 cases under 286 IPC, that is negligent act, was committed. Does it make any difference? It doesn't make any difference. There has to be a carpet bombing campaign at least 3 weeks before every Diwali, every school, every college.
1 second. They did try and publicize it in the schools. It happened at my son's school, so I know that. In other places as well, an effort was made. It almost was as if people didn't care. We'd choke, we'd breathe this dirty air, but we don't care. Patake to hum phodenge.
Then at least the lawmakers of various parties should get onto one platform if they want to save lives and go around the various places and do it. Your panchayat institutions fail, your MLAs fail, your MPs fail, the entire system of representation fails. So you put the blame on enforcement authorities. Is that ever possible? No police can do anything about encroachments or these kind of cracker bans or catching small liquor here and there. So we have to rely on proper institutions to do something. There has to be an institutional mechanism.
Dr. Vivek Nangia is the Principal Director and the Head of Pulmonology at the Max Super Speciality Hospital. Dr. Nangia, how bad was it from a health perspective today? In comparison with the last few days, have you seen a sudden spike in the number of patients coming over to your hospital seeking treatment?
Actually, it will be too premature for me to say something like that. That, in just 1 day's elevation in the AQI levels, worsening of the AQI levels, there has been a sudden rise in the number of cases coming to the hospital. But yeah, certainly, if I compare it to the last year when we were in a practically a lockdown kind of a situation, staying indoors as much as possible, wearing masks at all times, the number of cases of people coming in with respiratory allergies, asthmas, cold, flu, were definitely much lesser then as compared to this year now. In the last 1 week, 10 days or so, we've been seeing a persistent, constant rise in the number of cases. Even if it is in terms of 5 or 10%, but yeah, there is people who are complaining of cold, burning in the eyes, running nose, stuffy nose, sore throat. breathing difficulties, breathlessness. So those are the common symptoms that people are coming to us these days with.
Jyoti Pandey Lavakare, it seemed for a while that the No Firecrackers campaign was winning the battle for narratives. Now there seems to be a pushback from the likes of Mohandas Pai, from the likes of Rahul Ishwar, from many in the BJP, who are saying that this is about Hindu culture, this is about Hindu history, this is about our right to burst firecrackers, and nothing that the likes of Raghav Chadha, Vimlendu Jha and the others can say will deter us from going out and bursting firecrackers, and we are willing to live with the consequences of our decision.
This is not at all about anything apart from public health. Every research shows that any sort of air pollution causes health harm, serious health harm. I'm not just talking about upper respiratory tract colds and coughs. It causes lung cancer. It can cause all sorts of cancers. It can cause strokes, diabetes. We know all of that. My point is simple. There has been a colossal breakdown of enforcement, so of the executive, of legislature, and of course the politicians, who will only fight amongst each other. We have the Prime Minister, who is not just the head of, who's not just the leader of the BJP, but also the Prime Minister of the entire country. I think the onus should have been on him to say, it's not just Delhi that's suffering, it's Uttar Pradesh, it's Haryana, it's the entire Indo-Gangetic plain, which has almost half a billion people who are suffering from all sorts of health harm because of air pollution. This is not just a seasonal problem. It is a problem that happens through the year. And it happens not just at low levels. It is there at high levels through the year. At this point, it peaks to alarming levels. So I think if the government can, whether it's state government or central government, if they can have a lockdown which was serious, if they can fine people for wearing, for not wearing masks during COVID, if they can have that kind of, every phone call you made was talking about COVID. I think if the intention was serious and if they really wanted to make sure that human health was not harmed by air pollution, which includes firecrackers, which includes stubble burning, which includes thermal power plants, which includes many other things, including garbage burning. So there are a whole host of problems, and all of those need to be handled. And that has not been done. And this fighting between BJP and Congress and Aam Aadmi Party is actually very disturbing, because none of them care about the lungs of the Delhi citizens and the entire Indo-Gangetic plain, people who live in the entire Indo-Gangetic plain. This is not just a Delhi problem. Let's not make it a Delhi problem or a religious problem.
Which is why I've been referring to North India again and again. In fact, even in Chennai, air quality worsened from about 154 to a whopping 446. So, Rahul Ishwar, if we make this about religion, if we make this about some kind of a victimization campaign against a Hindu religion, then this whole idea of a clean Deepavali, or at least a less pollution-some Deepavali, will never take off, because there's nothing one party can do if another much bigger party lends its weight to the firecracker campaign and the anti-firecracker campaign, or at least moving people in the direction of clean firecrackers, will never take off.
Rahul Kanwalji, this is not about politics, but two submissions are there. One, let's be realistic. Let's be practical about this. Even Supreme Court, I think the Calcutta High Court last day went with a 2-hour window for green firecrackers. See, this is a solution. As I'm a person who always go for firecrackers, but listening to a person like Dr. Baga yesterday, a very eminent doctor, I decided to cut down the crackers I buy by almost 1/5, and the rest I gave to a Hindu orphanage. See, there are practical, realistic solutions, and it should be built by consensus. It should not be like something demonizing the entire people who burn firecrackers as something bad, something illiberal, something regressive. This kind of a fake narrative campaign has been going from our liberal friends, which in turn provokes Hindus, which in turn provoke people who believes in Dharma and people who want to celebrate Diwali. So if there is a retaliation from them, they cannot be blamed. See, it is not like, you versus us, but rather, why don't we find out a solution? Make some protocols for doing this. Give some window, give some spaces.
Let Raghav Chadha respond to a very important point that you're making, that even the Supreme Court spoke of allowing, Raghav, green firecrackers in the manner in which the rules were sought to be implemented in the capital. For example, it was decided that even green firecrackers are not allowed. Now, the likes of Rahul Ishwar will say, Talk to us on the table, talk to us like mature adults. We're as concerned about the air that we breathe and our children breathe. Let's find practical solutions. It could be green firecrackers, it could be a window where crackers can burn. This kind of a Tughlaki farman from the Chief Minister is not acceptable. It creates a backlash. Raghav Chadda.
First of all, Rahul, the observations and the orders passed by the Honorable Supreme Court vis-a-vis Calcutta's Calcutta High Court's order was limited to the jurisdiction of West Bengal, and they refer to certain local legal regime using which the directions were passed by the West Bengal government. But as far as the overall architecture of this ban is concerned, Supreme Court year after year, including in the year 2021, in which we are currently in, has said in no uncertain terms that there needs to be a ban of firecrackers. And Supreme Court has gone to the extent of saying that celebration of a festival cannot be at the cost of right to health of individuals. Number one. Number two, in Delhi, the Delhi High Court as well as the NGT both have in no uncertain terms said that there needs to be a blanket ban on the use of firecrackers, and it is only in pursuance of those judgments of the Delhi High Court and the directions of the NGT that the government of NCT of Delhi had come out with this order. Number one. Number two, my point is very limited to the limited argument that this is neither a state issue, that is, this is air pollution is not a Delhi issue, nor is this a religious problem or a religious issue. It is unfortunate that the BJP is trying to, view this from a religious prism, possibly to gain some political brownie points. But the fact is that this festival is a festival in which we worship Lord Rama, we worship Goddess Sita, we worship Ganesh Ji, we worship Lakshmi Ji. But celebration of Diwali is about celebrating it with your friends, wearing colorful clothes, having sweets, etc. This new this thing of bursting firecrackers, etc. was never part of our ethos and culture. Number one. Number two.
No, but Raghav Chadda, I was reading some literature on when the whole business of bursting firecrackers started around Deepavali. Now, there are some books which talk about firecrackers being a part of Indian history going back several centuries, even to 1400s, and much later, and definitely in the early part of the 1900s. There's lots of talks about firecrackers being burned. So, if you look at P.K. Godey's book in his account, The History of Fireworks in India between 1400 and 1900, which is published way back in 1950, he talks about the use of firecrackers in the celebration of Deepavali, which is so common in India, must have come into existence around the year 1400, when gunpowder first came to India and was used in warfare.
Rahul,
I am pretty sure, Rahul, that all these arguments that you just made was certainly accounted for when the Supreme Court, the Delhi High Court, and the NGT passed these directions of a blanket ban. When they said that the health of a person cannot be compromised. And just take the example of the government of Delhi, in which the Honorable Chief Minister, along with his cabinet ministers, celebrated Diwali with the entire 2 crore population of Delhi. He did a Ganesh Puja, Lakshmi Puja, and the entire population of Delhi participated in that the celebration of a holy festival.
Okay, so both Mohan Das Pai and one second, Mohan Das Pai and Rahul Ishwar are itching to come in. Let me go across to Mohan Das Pai first. Yes.
Rahul, look at the fake narrative, Rahul. Oh, I don't remember firecrackers ever being burned. It's recent. 55 years of my life, I've seen firecrackers being burned. I go back much earlier than Raghav does. All right, I'm much older. 55 years. Now he's sending this kind of fake narrative, depriving the Hindu community of the tradition, is what is hurting people and causing trouble. Why should these people create fake narratives, lie, target a religious community? They will all rebel. It's human nature to rebel because they're getting fake narratives.
Okay,
why
Rahul Ishwar. You
got history.
Air pollution.
You got the book to say it's been going on.
Give me 15 seconds.
Raghavji, just one submission. Why don't we have a consensus on this? Because, whenever there is a Holi, many people say waterless Holi, colorless Holi. When it comes to Diwali, they say crackerless Diwali. When it comes to Jallikattu, they say, bullless Jallikattu. So, or milkless Shivaratri. So, Hindu community has a right to feel offended. So, why don't you invite community leaders? Why don't you talk to them, engage, create create some kind of window. Please remember, being realistic, have a balanced, two-handed approach is extremely important.
One second, Jyoti Pandey Lavakare. She has a hand up, let her make a point.
Rahul, may I?
Yes,
one second, Raghav, I'm coming back to you.
The Supreme Court actually had given a chance to manufacturers. The reason the green crackers were allowed was because the Supreme Court had tried to balance lives with livelihood. Now, what has happened is there are only 4 crackers that are actually green crackers. Out of 300, there are only 4 crackers that PISO has certified as green. Are you telling me that every single firecracker that went off across the entire Delhi was one of those 4? It was not. So that is why you need a blanket ban, because no enforcement agency can go and check each firecracker. There are only 4 out of 300. I don't think there are some estimates. I run a non-profit called Care for Air, and one of the estimates there is that there were 5 million kilograms of firecrackers that went off yesterday. Now, those were not just those 4 firecrackers that are deemed to be green firecrackers. That's one thing. The second thing is, if that has been done, where are the enforcement agencies? Where is the Lieutenant Governor? I mean, Delhi has also the Lieutenant Governor as well as the Aam Aadmi Party. Where is that happening in Delhi? And of course, let's not even talk about Uttar Pradesh and Haryana, because firecrackers were going off across all these states.
Yashovardhan Azad, given the political polarization that we're seeing, what do you think, sir, should be done next year so that we're not in the same situation, we're not seeing this political fight, and we're not all choking at the same time?
A lot has to be done in the formulation of the policies also, because there was this MOU signed by NEERI and the manufacturers that these are the standards which will be followed. And in fact, what the lady said just now, I totally agree with her. That also the PESO approved standard that was to be followed by the manufacturers. It is very, very difficult to enforce it. Now, the question here is that we have to be legally sound also and scientific too. After all, if the Supreme Court has allowed and mandated that green crackers can be allowed, in which there is a phuljadi and there's another one, it's not bombs or ladis or anything like that, then why can't we build a consensus towards that? It's very, very important for the next year that all these...
Raghav Chadha, don't go for these blanket bans which then create this big backlash. Try and find a sensible window which people would respect, because it is as much in their interest as it is in yours. Final words, Raghav Chadha.
Yeah, Rahul, first of all, this blanket ban was on the order of the NGT and not, as per any other sort of instructions coming from any politician of the BJP or the Congress or the Aam Aadmi Party. This is the NGT that has instructed the government of Delhi to come out with this blanket ban. Number 2, when there is mass violation, enforcement by the Delhi police or by the DPCC, of course, is not to that extent, and it cannot possibly be if there is mass violation. Number 3, notwithstanding the contempt of court that the lawmakers of the BJP have indulged in by outrightly condemning the Supreme Court and the NGT and the High Court judgment and their direction, let me say this, that when the level of air pollution in the city of Delhi or in the entire North Indian region goes up, the respiratory health of the Hindus, the Muslims, the Sikhs, the Christians, everyone gets impacted in equal measure. So this is not a religious problem. This should not be viewed from a religious prism. And lastly, if the BJP wants to do politics on this issue, please explain to me, why did the government of Haryana, where the BJP is in power, came out with a blanket ban on burning of firecrackers? How do they explain that? Their leaders in Delhi, in order to do their cheap, petty politics, condemn the Aam Aadmi Party for coming out with a notification like this. But when it comes to their own administration in Haryana, they come out with a notification making a complete blanket ban on the burning of firecrackers.
In conclusion, that blanket bans may not be the way to go. That seems quite clear. Having a conversation, finding a consensus, taking people with their will towards lesser firecrackers, cleaner firecrackers might be the right way to go, because otherwise you see this huge backlash. People going out with josh, with a vengeance, saying, how can you stop us from bursting firecrackers? That doesn't serve the purpose. You end up far worse, and all of us end up having to choke and breathe this dirty air. Hopefully a more sensible possible window might be a way to go. It has to be everyone wanting to do this together. It cannot be a diktat You can't thrust it down people's throats, because as we saw, and that might sound good on paper, it doesn't work on the ground. I'm slipping into a break. I'm thanking all my guests for joining us.